Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are super excited because OONI is celebrating 10 years, and we have the amazing opportunity to have some incredible community speakers here with us today to share how they have used OONI tools and data as part of their work. For those of you who might not be very familiar with what OONI is, we are a free software project that started 10 years ago, and our goal is to empower decentralized efforts in increasing transparency of internet censorship around the world. In practice, what we do is that we build free and open source software tools called OONI which you can install on your mobile phones and on your laptop in order to run a variety of experiments to detect various forms of internet censorship. OONI has been run by hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and the test results are automatically published by us as open data in real time. And the reason why we publish the data as open data is to increase transparency of internet censorship around the world and to enable researchers and human rights advocates to make use of the data. And so over the last 10 years, thanks to the global OONI community, we've had the opportunity to publish more than 1 billion network measurements collected from 25,000 networks in 241 countries and territories. And so, as you can imagine, our community really is at the heart of our work. And so we really feel that it is fitting that in celebrating 10 years of OONI, that we have OONI community members share how they have used OONI tools and data as part of their work. And so that being said, I'm very thrilled to share that we have 5 incredible community members with us today who will be presenting how they've used OONI tools as part of their work. Specifically, we're going to start off with Felicia Anthonio from Access Now, who has been using OONI data as part of the global Keep It On advocacy campaign. Then we'll be having Kelly Ko from Malaysia's Sinar Project, who will discuss how they have used over many years, how they have used OONI tools and data in investigating internet censorship across Southeast Asia. We'll also have Jacob Delic from the Citizen Lab, who will discuss how he analyzed OONI data in investigating the blocking of LGBTIQ websites around the world. And we'll also have Igor Valentovitch from Netalitica, who will discuss how he has been coordinating the creation of a URL database for measuring internet censorship around the world. And last but not least, we are going to have Raya Sharbain from the Tor project with us, who will share how they use OONI to test Tor. So we really have a very exciting lineup today, and thank you all so much for joining. As you watch the presentations, please feel encouraged to take note of any questions you may have. You can share your questions through the live chat on YouTube, or you can share them through the pad that is shared through the live chat. So that being said, we can start off with Felicia from Access Now. Felicia, the floor is yours.
Hello. All right. Thank you, Sharon. And I want to start off by saying proud of OONI 10 years and supporting the community when it comes to with regards to internet shutdowns and the team for the amazing work you've been doing years. And we look forward to more. All right, I'm going to run through my and as Maria said, the Keep It On campaign has benefited data over the years. Next. Talk about the Keep It On campaign and the importance, and then of course how the campaign in the fight against internet shutdowns. Next. Next. So, for those of you who are not familiar, this is a global campaign that was started by Access Now. It's from around the world. At RightsCon is Access Now's annual event. Diverse stakeholders to discuss in the digital age. And so current to over 280 civil society, 105 countries around the globe fight internet shutdowns worldwide. So how do our main goal is to prevent shutdowns from happening with various stakeholders
to ensure that internet shutdowns do not become an option for authorities during important national events. However, in situations where we are not able to prevent them from happening, we also raise awareness and advocate against them as and when they happen. We name and shame authorities that impose internet shutdowns. And most importantly, we monitor and document each case of shutdown that happens. And this information is curated under our STOP project, which is the Shutdown Tracker Optimization Project, which I'll speak more about in the next slide. But then this is where OONI and other community members that support with measurements come in. And so they provide us with the technical evidence to be able to document the shutdown as and when they happen. And then we provide digital security support as well as circumvention supports for people that are being impacted by internet shutdowns. We use strategic litigation as one tool in pushing back against internet shutdowns, and we do provide grants and emergency funds as well for community members to continue grassroots advocacy on digital rights related issues. Next. So under the STOP, which is the Shutdown Tracker Optimization Project, what we seek to do is to create and maintain a database of shutdowns that have happened over the years or over a particular period. And we currently have data from 2016 to 2021. This is available on our website, and you can see where we collect information from. The tracker aims to contextualize and document internet shutdown cases around the world using the definition that was coined by the Keep It On Coalition when the campaign was launched in 2016. Our tracker uses both quantitative and qualitative data to record the number of shutdowns in the world. And the network measurement community, as I mentioned, provides crucial technical data, tools, and evidence of shutdowns for our advocacy purposes. Next. So how do we use OONI? OONI provides technical evidence of shutdowns as and when they happen for our advocacy purposes. It helps to figure out the trends and provide support during shutdowns. So what kind of tools are being restricted? And we know that OONI is used to measure partial shutdowns when they happen. And so what kind of tools are being impacted by the shutdown? Authorities also shutting down like tools like VPNs, and this enable us to find other ways and means of supporting people that are affected by internet shutdowns to come back online. We also use this data that is gathered by OONI for advocacy purposes. We share this information by various stakeholders and support litigation cases with evidence of these disruptions as and when they happen. And so thanks to the work that, or the measurements gathered through OONI, we've been able to put together, or we are able to see which platforms are being disrupted in which countries and for how long. And this informs the database that we put out every year to showcase the number of shutdowns we've documented annually, as you can see in the chart. Next. So you can see we've referenced OONI's work, or we've used OONI's data to support press releases or the annual reports that we put together to highlight internet shutdowns. And so we use OONI research to update these critical developments around internet shutdowns, as you can see. Next. So this is a snapshot of the STOP database, and you can see that the OONI Explorer link is being used here to show that this information or this shutdown was reported by OONI. And of course, we do corroborate this with other information that we gather to support the context and to provide more information about why and what platforms are being targeted during that particular shutdown. Next. Okay, so you can see people have run OONI tests, and you can see the results in the OONI Explorer showing that maybe this platform is blocked. Sometimes there are anomalies, and we have to, thanks to OONI's guidance, we are able to understand what exactly is happening. OONI also supports us to localize the steps used in downloading, installing, and running measurements by providing us with a step-by-step guidance that we share with partners, easy to use, easy to understand. And so it enables the partners to be able to run these tests and contribute to the measurements database. Next. Yeah, this also is still showcasing how we've used OONI in our reporting with regards to internet shutdowns. And then, of course, we also use information that is shared by OONI through tweets or toolkits or blogs to amplify a particular shutdown as and when it's happening. Next. These are some resources. You can have a look at that and see how much of OONI's data we've referenced. And one last thing I want to say is that we do incorporate OONI as one of the ways people can contribute to the fight against internet shutdowns in our Election Watch campaign, where we provide capacity building for various actors, be it civil society or journalists, to be able to contribute to measurement, because without people running the test and without people contributing to this community, we will not be able to see which platforms are being disrupted. And so thank you, OONI, for all the support, and thank you to the community that continuously provide these technical measurements support to the community for us to be able to track internet shutdowns as and when they happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felicia. Thank you for leading the global Keep It On campaign, and thank you for all the incredible work that you and Access Now have done over the years. We really appreciate you using OONI censorship measurements as part of your advocacy, and thank you so much. So next we have Kelly from Malaysia's Sinar Project. Sinar Project are an organization who have been leading censorship measurement efforts in Southeast Asia for a very long time. And we're very excited to have Kelly share with you how they use OONI tools and data as part of their work. So thank you. And next we have Kelly.
Hi everyone, I'm sharing my screen. It's under Q. Yes, thank you everyone. Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about using OONI tools and data to investigate internet censorship in Southeast Asia. So I'm going to begin by talking about our current ongoing project, which is the Internet Monitoring Action Project, also known as IMAP, that runs from 2021 to September 2024. And what is IMAP about? So in IMAP, we are trying to establish regional and in-country networks that will monitor network interference and restrictions to the freedom of expression online in 9 countries and regions, which includes Burma, Cambodia, Hong Kong, China, which is part of China, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. And what does IMAP cover? In IMAP, we are focusing on 3 core areas. The first one and the most important one, which is to contribute data and information in terms of the internet censorship. So through this, we are trying to increase the collection of OONI probe measurements. We are also asking our network to strengthen the censorship monitoring by improving the country-specific test list to include those that is updated and relevant sites to monitor, and to also produce annual country reports on the state of internet censorship in the 9 countries and regions that I mentioned earlier. Besides that, we are also focusing on network building. We are trying to foster the development of regional and national network of digital activists, and we are at the same time we are establishing the in-country networks that will also contribute in monitoring the internet interference and restrictions to the freedom of expression online. And to do that, part of our project is also on capacity building, because we are trying to build the capacity of the IMAP network to understand internet censorship testing and to equip our members with the skills to carry out monitoring of internet censorship and how to improve the existing test list for monitoring. And all of this we are using our OONI tools to help us in our project. Moving on, I will be speaking on some of our ongoing activities that we are carrying out in IMAP. First of all will be the country reports. The annual reports will be focusing on analyzing the data that we have collected in terms of the network interference and internet censorship in 2022, 2023, and 2024. This will be done in each of these countries listed, which is Burma, Cambodia, Hong Kong. India is exception of 2022. They will join us in 2023 and also 2024 reports. Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. So each of these countries will have their own country reports on the state of censorship. We also have the ongoing local partner workshop in each country. I would like to do a shout out. We have an upcoming event. Our partner in Philippines, Engage Media, will be having an Internet Monitoring Action Program. It's a local partner workshop physically on 9 December, 10:30 to 3:30 p.m. Manila time. So if you are interested, feel free to contact Engage Media to join. The fourth will be the translation of the OONI Probe app and country reports. This is because we try to reach out to more local users to create more local awareness. And we have ongoing updating and reviewing country-specific test lists. So I have also want to do an announcement. Coming soon, we'll have a launch of the State of Internet Censorship 2022 reports in these 8 country and region. This will be published in our website, imap.sinarproject.org. And what you're looking at is a snapshot of what the report will cover. This is, you're looking at the categories or websites that are confirmed to be blocked in these 8 countries and regions. Moving next, we are looking at some of our past projects activities using OONI tools. So part of it is to also use crowdsourcing tests for specific events using OONI Run and OONI Probe. This is through when we talk about events, it's mostly about like protests or elections, and some that could be politically sensitive, which would necessitate specific monitoring. So you're looking at the picture now is the monetistana.com. This is an active site that sells this picture, the monkey, the graphic, created by our local activist, Ami Reza, who is also a graphic designer. He drew this monkey wearing a royal suit. So he got into a lot of trouble for this. And his NFT site that tried to sell this graphic itself got locked on the day of the sale. So we monitor this event specifically. The rest of the events are also listed here with the year. We are also involved in the reports. We have in the past contributed in the writing of the censorship in Indonesia, Myanmar, Thailand, and Malaysia. So this will be updated in our upcoming State of Internet Censorship report under our IMAP project. We are also looking at a picture of a blog page in Indonesia. And we have also, since 2017, maintained the Human Rights Internet Censorship dashboard. This dashboard tried to cover Cambodia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, giving user-friendly overview of the media freedom, freedom of expression, and association, backed by the latest OONI data and measurements. So you can see that it's categorized by all these categories following the citizen test list. And in the past, we have also had a regional workshop in 2018. So this workshop, it also includes running OONI protests with our local partners from Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, including using Raspberry Pi and understanding the regional and country-specific risks faced by our local partners. And in recent time, early this year, we have also had another round of regional workshop with our IMAP partners as well. So this concludes my presentation. Happy 10th Ooniversary, and thank you OONI team for the amazing work. And thank you the OONI committee for contributing to the measurements. That is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you everyone from Sinar Project for all of your incredible work across Southeast Asia over the years. We're really grateful. And so next we have Jacob Delic from the Citizen Lab, another incredible organization doing cutting-edge research on information controls around the world for a very long time. And Jacob will be discussing how they've used OONI data as part of research. So off to you.
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, my name is Jacob Dalick. I'm a technical researcher at the Citizen Lab, and today I want to, Citizen Lab has been a part of the community for a long time, and I'd like to present work we did a couple months ago, maybe a year ago, around the censorship of LGBTIQ websites, where we used OONI predominantly. So in this report, I should say, we did this with OONI as well as Outright Action International. So it was 3 organizations that contributed to the report. Now, I'll talk specifically about some of the technical work, technical measurement work as a part of that. So as a part of this work, we looked at 6 countries, Indonesia, Russia, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Iran. Here they are presented with their respective block pages. And they were essentially, these countries were selected because we knew that they had website censorship from previous reports, and they all showed explicit block pages like the ones you see here. As well, we had some indication that they were blocking this particular content category, and we wanted to investigate how that filtering is implemented. So for us at the Citizen Lab, at least, this was kind of the first foray into analyzing a specific content category across many, many countries. So typically in the past, we would look at individual cases, whether it was around an election or something like that. There was a specific country case, and then we would look at that case basically alone. This was kind of the first foray where we use the mass amount of OONI data in order to kind of take a look at the whole content category across many, many countries. And this actually covers about a 4-year period. So this goes from June 2016 to about 2020. And 2016 was chosen because this was about the time when web connectivity tests started appearing in OONI. So it was pretty much from the genesis of web connectivity tests up until what was, then correct. So it has covered millions of measurements, about a terabyte of uncompressed text, and it really kind of captured a sample of very different kinds of blocking methods across many, many different ISPs. So there was a lot of internal diversity, I guess, in the case of how the blocks were actually implemented. The kind of bird's eye view of what the actual workflow looks like for anybody that, I don't know, might be considering doing something like this. Essentially, we start at the left with basically all the OONI probe users who contribute measurements. They run the application and it goes into this common measurement pool that OONI runs. Basically at the Citizen Lab, we wrote software to download those measurements from that S3 bucket and store it in a local database. And then what we did is we wrote some software in order to summarize and analyze these things in order to determine what is blocked and what's not. And the summaries and analyses basically formed the basis of the work. And what the benefits that OONI gave us in this case were basically they gave us citable individual measurements. So when you see a certain network activity, whatever that may be, you can cite it specifically to the measurement. We use the Explorer URLs to cite it. It's also a common data pool for other researchers to review and verify. And this is actually fairly powerful because that means that censorship analysis is recreatable and reproducible. And also it's an ongoing just-in-time measurements from a really wide geographic area. And what this means is you don't have to necessarily wait for an event to happen. You don't need to predict an event is going to happen. It's always collecting from all these different geographic vantage points. And this really what, in essence, it allows you to do is to provide a historical record, and a historical record not just of measurements, but of website accessibility, of the content that they're returning, of website uptime, network policy changes, whether they're local, national, ISP, office, library, what have you. And it just has a lot of examples of different blocking techniques and a lot of different examples of what different middle box vendor blocking looks like. This work particularly focused on the web connectivity test. We used the measurement metadata, the DNS resolution, and accessibility, and mostly the content returned as well. We didn't make use a lot of the timing information, but it's a future work that could definitely be expanded upon. And a lot of other test types outside of web connectivity exist, of course, and they're always being developed. So looking at these alongside the web connectivity ones would be a good place for future work. But in essence, this research, or OONI essentially, allows us to look beyond these single country cases. It allows us at the lab, for example, to focus on writing programs that are beyond the data collection, knowing that the data collection is done safely and it's really well documented. And it develops citable network measurements that provides permalinks so you can prove an event had happened at a certain time. And overall, this really gives us reproducible network censorship analysis, and it's a great tool. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacob, to you and to the Citizen Lab for working with us and for doing such incredible analysis as part of this research and other reports. And next we have Igor Valentovitch, who's working on a fantastic project called Netalitica, which you'll hear about now. Thanks, Igor.
Hello, guys. My name is Igor, and I've been working together with OONI for the past 9 years, so I know them almost from the very beginning. It was a great experience, and today during my presentation, I will share with you what we work on together with OONI, as well as a research case as an example of how to use OONI tools. My presentation is about developing URL databases that network probes use in order to do their job. And the test case would be about measuring internet censorship during the Russian presidential elections in 2018. A few words about the organization that I represent. It is called Netalitica. We research information controls and internet filtering globally, basically. Our main focus is on updating the Citizen Lab test lists. My colleague Jacob, just before me, he didn't mention that, but Citizen Lab created in the late 2000s the largest database of country-specific test lists. These are basically spreadsheets where your local URLs are organized into 30 thematic categories, covering all spheres of social life, like human rights, news media, LGBTQ, like you can imagine. So everything we see in our daily life, so locally produced on the internet, would be summarized in those databases. And what we do as organization, we update those databases because over time they become some elements of them need to be fixed. So far, we've updated the test list for 50 countries, literally from around the world. This is like geographically how our reach looks like. And this is more like the lists of the countries we updated in Latin America, Asia, Africa, MENA region, the former Soviet Union countries, as well as a couple of European states like Hungary and Poland. Let me see what's next. I'm going to use this case study in order to exemplify the use of OONI tools for conducting research. The case study is about internet censorship in Russia during the 2018 presidential elections. Citizen Lab, as Jacob mentioned, they in the past conducted research on specific countries during key political events to see whether those political events influence the internet freedom on the ground. So in 2010, Citizen Lab determined that the presidential election resulted in temporary blocking of critical websites. And in 2018, me and colleague of mine, Ksenia Ermoshina, decided to look at the same case and see whether this is still the case, whether still the Russians would block critical platforms during the elections. So this was the major research question, and we were looking here at two territories, basically, Russia and Crimea. For those of you who are not familiar with the conflicts in the region, Crimea is a Ukrainian territory that was annexed by the Russian Federation in 2014, and basically all the ISPs in Crimea was replaced with Russian from Ukrainian. They became Russian ISPs. And we wanted to compare how the censorship is experienced in those two territories. So these were our main research questions. Will liberal platforms be blocked during the elections? Is the blocking consistent or exclusive across Russia and Crimea? And if there are differences, what factors explain those differences? The methodology, for those of you who might consider similar research, so here's some ideas. So definitely that was a comparative study of two territories that experienced many similarities. And for our research, we exclusively relied on OONI probes for the data collection. The data collection lasted for 3 months on the networks of more than 70 internet service providers throughout Russia and Crimea. And for our research, we used the so-called custom test list. Let me explain what that is. Let me see. Okay, so basically, whenever you are using OONI probe to investigate internet censorship in a specific country, if you launch the app, it will automatically load the Citizen Lab test list for that country that Citizen Lab set up, and we as the organization updated over the years. And you have another option though. If you have a narrow research question, you can go for a so-called custom test list. These are your own URLs you want to test on the ground. So OONI created a really helpful tool in that respect. It's called OONI Run. You can look it up. What it is basically if you have websites that you want to test in your country, you organize them in a spreadsheet. It could be Excel spreadsheet. Then you copy and paste them into OONI and it generates a link that you can send to testers on the ground. When they click on that link, OONI app will automatically launch on their devices and will start testing the URLs you send them for investigation, and it will generate a report. So that's what we did. We came up with a custom test list of 100 URLs from these key categories: mass media, human rights, political criticism, critical blogs, social media channels, and foreign foundations, because we knew that these are most probably the type of content locally produced in Russia that might be targeted, also externally produced as well. But in case you want to use the default method of the operation of the OONI app, this is like when the OONI app is using the Citizen Lab test list for the investigation, we highly recommend that before doing your research, you update the Citizen Lab test list. This is what we do as an organization, Netalitica. We hire local researchers, experts from individual countries that we work in, who investigate the test list. They are aware of the internet censorship on the ground, and they update those test lists. Basically, this is a three-stage process that starts with reviewing and cleaning bad URLs from the existing test list. Then the researchers add new websites to the list, and finally they balance the URLs across categories. I'll mention about this in a bit. The typical problems you would usually find in reviewing existing test lists are the following. You're going to have a lot of dead websites, websites that change their focus over the time, platforms that were outdated, websites that are up for sale, social media accounts that are not existent anymore, and so on and so forth. Here on this slides, you can see why reviewing and updating the existing databases is important. Here, this slide shows you how many problematic URLs we found in individual country databases. Here are the countries on the left side, and you can see that in most of the cases, more than 50% of the existing URLs in the test lists were suffering from the above mentioned problems, and we need to fix them. Why this is important to be done? First of all, of course, because this is going to help you generate a high quality research, because your data is going to be more reliable at the end. And second, because improving and cleaning the test list from bad URLs is going to increase the speed of your tests. They're going to run faster. This is especially important for local testers on the ground that you're going to rely on, who use their own resources and their volunteers in order to complete this type of projects. So they're going to run the tests faster, and they're going to pay less for network expenses. Okay. And finally, balancing the list. This was the third element of updating Citizen Lab test list. What this means is that as researchers and investigators, you should make sure before going to the field and testing that all the 30 categories into which the URLs are organized into those lists are populated with a representative number of URLs. For example, something that actually Jacob touched upon, they investigated LGBTQ type of content across multiple territories. So this is something that we worked hard to make possible. Our researchers at the beginning, for example, when we start reviewing the test list, identified that many of the categories were left blank. And they had to fill them with content. And very often these were, for example, the LGBT category. That was no tests, no URLs were listed there for testing. And here on this slide, you can see how many of the individual test list categories for these countries were actually left blank in the original test lists, and we populated those with content. Okay. So I'll go faster through the remaining slides because my time is up. So the process of collecting measurements, as I mentioned, was done with the help of OONI probes. We, for the period of 3 months, collected more than 400,000 measurements. So it's a massive amount of data. The way we managed to achieve this was we propagated our project on local Russian social media channels. We reached to blocked organizations on the ground who also advertised our project to their target audiences. And we also received the support and endorsement by established think tanks, including Citizen Lab and Digital Rights Project like OONI, who also propagated this type of research to their audiences. And at the end, we also tested ourselves on the field. And for the data processing and analysis, as I mentioned, we collected a massive amount of data. So there is no easy way at the time. There was no easy way to extract it from the OONI databases. So we were left with a couple of options using the OONI Explorer, which is very handy, but when you're working with a small n of tests, if you have something more than 500 measurements or something like that, so I would rather go for another approach. Your other option would be to use the OONI API, which is extremely powerful, but unfortunately it's more for tech-savvy people, and me and my colleague are social science researchers, so we didn't know exactly how to use it. It was going to slow us down until we learned, and that's why we opted for the third best option for us. It was to bother the OONI team, so I recommend doing that. So very friendly and helpful. What they did, they extracted the data for us. We worked, of course, with a data sample, and they organized it into spreadsheets that we later analyzed. So this is just an example of one of the spreadsheets that we used, how the data was organized in Excel pivot tables, where we here on the left-hand side have the websites that we wanted to test for accessibility. And on the top, we have the different internet service providers, the ISN numbers. And here we have the results, whether the website is accessible, if not, how it is blocked, by what methods. Right, and final couple of slides, the major case study findings we arrived at. So basically the two major findings: presidential elections in Russia didn't have any major impact on internet censorship in the country. Basically, whatever was blocked in Russia before the elections remained blocked during and after the elections, and there were no critical platforms that were blocked specifically for the elections. Something interesting, the social media channels of those news media organizations that were blocked before the elections were actually accessible during the elections. And the second major discovery, which was more interesting to us as researchers, it was about the porous internet censorship or filtering in Russia. So the internet censorship in that country is experienced inconsistently across different internet service providers. Sorry. So the inconsistent internet blocking can be seen to be present between ISPs in Russia and Crimea as separate territories. Within the mainland Russian internet service providers, we witnessed underblocking of websites that were supposed to be blocked because the Russian telecommunication authorities demanded that. And when we looked at Crimea itself, we noticed overblocking of resources. So basically, the local internet service providers were blocking more content than necessary. And so we discovered the reasons for that under and over blocking. So here are some of them. Those, mainly speaking, were the technical limitations of small internet service providers on the ground. They lacked expensive technology for granular filtering of websites, specifically HTTPS type of websites, and mainly individual pages. And instead of blocking individual pages as demanded by the Russian Telecommunications Authority, local ISPs would block entire domains usually by DNS. Okay, so let me see. So these are the other reasons for the inconsistency in the blocking experience in Russia, and some tables how we organized our research in order to determine those inconsistencies. So this is consistency of blocking across territories, Russia and Crimea. You can see here the websites that we tested. what categories they fall into, what is the requirement by the Russian Telecommunication Authority. It's called Roskomnadzor. So, for example, in this case, it demands the blocking of pages on this domain. And then we aggregated our data and determined how many of the Russian ISPs fulfill this obligation. So here, nobody actually from the ISPs in Russia blocked those pages. And in Crimea, so you can see that it was accessible in 86% in the cases. And in the, I guess this is the final slide that I have. So this was the investigation of the inconsistency of blocking within a single territory, Crimea. This is the case. Here we compared 4 different ISPs against the same set of websites that they were supposed to block pages of, and you can see how different their reaction to that instructions was. Some blocked it by DNS, some blocked it by HTTP, and some left those domains accessible. So you have a very porous internet censorship on the ground. You can read our research on the Open Technology Fund website. That was the organization that supported our research. And happy anniversary, OONI, sorry. It was really a pleasure working with you and really friendly stuff. We couldn't complete that research without their assistance and their tools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Igor, both for the very important research you did several years ago, and also for taking initiative and improving upon the quality of website testing around the world through your Teslas project. Really, thank you so much for all the incredible work. And last but not least, we are excited to have with us Raya from the Tor project, who will be sharing how they use OONI tools to test Tor. So off to you, Raya.
Thank you very much, Maria, and happy birthday to OONI. Honestly, one of the fantastic projects and open source projects that advance internet freedom around the world. So I'm Raya, I work with the Tor project. I'm going to tell you more about how we use OONI to test Tor. So just to tell you more about how Tor is blocked around the world, it's mainly in 2 ways. So Tor project website and mirror sites can be blocked on a network. It can make it more difficult to download Tor browser and Tor tools, but also access to the Tor network itself. So reachability to the Tor network can be blocked by internet service providers because the relays that form the backbone of the network are publicly listed. We do include circumvention tools in our browser and in different apps called bridges that help us get around these blocks. So OONI is very useful for us to understand more where Tor could be blocked so we can improve our tools. So we use OONI to learn whether people in certain countries are having a hard time reaching Tor directly. So whether we need to push for more bridges or use of more bridges in this specific place of the world. And if it's not direct reachability to the Tor network, we also test whether Snowflake, which is one of the circumvention tools we have inside Tor, whether people can access Tor via Snowflake specifically. So we use this data to improve our tools, but also to improve our advocacy. Specifically, we have a new feature in Tor browser called Connection Assist. It was released in one of the major releases of Tor browser this year, I believe 11.5. The more evidence we have around blocking of Tor network, the more we can fine-tune Connection Assist. So now if you download Tor browser and you try to connect to the Tor network, if it's unable to connect, it will take you to a page called Connection Assist, and it will tell you ask you which location you're in. So you would insert the country, for example, Algeria, and it will tell you, do you want to try a bridge that we know works in Algeria? The way we know which bridges work where is often through OONI. And we've done this in different contexts in Russia, in China, and also in Iran, where we kept testing different bridges and reachability of certain different bridges in these contexts, so we can also add them as fine-tune our connection assist feature. But it also helps us discover which specific ISPs are blocking reachability to the Tor network and are giving users a tougher time to connect to Tor. All right. So this all helps us to improve our advocacy, because we tend to promote use of Tor, or let's say advocate for people to download Tor browser and Tor tools like Orbot, Onion browser, and different tools that make use of the Tor network around periods of internet shutdowns. But often we know that, for example, in certain contexts, people cannot access just torproject.org to download the tools, or they can't access the Tor network directly. So we use OONI to learn better how we should promote in a specific country, how we should promote Tor, how we should promote how to download Tor, how to access the Tor network. In a recent example, prior to the elections in Kazakhstan, we created a campaign to download Tor, but we learned through OONI that it was more or less reachable directly. We didn't need to advocate for use of bridges. But in the case of Iran, for example, we knew that Tor was severely restricted, but people could access Tor via Snowflake. So this is one way as well we can fine-tune our advocacy, especially our social media campaigning around Tor. But also we've seen users, and we know of use cases of people who've used Tor to fight censorship in their own contexts. One way is if you are in a restricted network, whether it's in a university, a hotel, a workplace, you can't access Tor or any Tor-powered tool. Often we've seen people actually download OONI to test Tor in this context and see that it's blocked, actually document that it's blocked, and advocate against this block. There was one case in Mexico where even a paper was published as a result. The Tor community used OONI to fight the censorship of Tor directory authorities, which are those who maintain the list of relays available on the network. And they were able to win this battle and overturn this blocking. And finally, one of the bigger cases we've worked on in the past year, and with the huge help of OONI, was monitoring the blocking of Tor, but also the blocking of torproject.org in Russia. So late last year, so actually exactly a year ago, we started receiving some cases from users telling us that they're having trouble accessing Tor in Russia. And we also, through OONI, and OONI published a report which monitored and documented the fact that actually a website was being blocked. This was taken to court thanks to a digital rights group in Russia called Roskom Svoboda. The ban of the Tor project's website was overturned, but unfortunately, the agency, the federal government agency in Russia that overlooks censorship of online services, eventually won the process again and blocked Tor project's website. But it's a long battle, and it's with different organizations that were able to, especially with the crucial support of projects like OONI, that we're able to keep this fight going. And that's it. Thank you very much. Really a huge thanks to everyone at the OONI team, one of the most welcoming communities and projects in this space. Thank you for everything you're doing, and I hope to be there for the 20th birthday.
Thank you so much, Raya, for that excellent presentation. And also thank you so much to everyone at the Tor project. Also, thank you for supporting OONI from the very beginning and helping us as a project grow. We very much appreciate and love all of you. So again, huge thanks to all of our speakers. We have some questions from the audience. We can start off with the first one, which I think may be for Jacob, but if anyone else would like to answer, they're also welcome to. And the first question is, what are the main challenges researchers face while using OONI data?
I can take a stab, but I think this question could apply to a lot of people that have been invited today. Yeah, I think a big challenge of using OONI data, and I think a lot of the work of the OONI team recently has started to address a lot of this, is I think kind of a lot of little things that we've heard from a lot of the presentations today. Number one, the quality of the test list is very paramount to the quality of the analysis. I think one of the things you have to be sure of is when you're looking at a country case, that you are aware of what's on the test list, and you're aware of the quality and the state of how the test list is. The other challenge is in downloading and actually looking at the data. Typically, you can search one-offs for little data when you're starting, but to look at it en masse is very, very challenging. And obviously, the OONI team has done a lot of work in this space with releasing the Mass Aggregation Toolkit, or MAT for short. And that really gives you a lot of like a bird's eye view, and this is fantastic. A lot of, I would say like 80% of my early work in looking at OONI data was in downloading it, getting it into that manageable state, and being able to do these like large queries across whatever scope you have, whether that's a single country or things like that. So just getting that into a manageable state is difficult. It's difficult to have that size of data where it's usable, relevant to your research, but also practical enough that you can explore it, that you can do different kinds of queries that are quick enough that you can kind of test around. So I think when you're starting off, using MAT and things like that are great. I think when you're getting into the more heavy usage of it and the more specialized usage, you're probably going to have to write your own software to use the data in order to, and that's obviously a lot harder to get started. Yeah, so I would say the test list, the getting into that manageable chunk of data, and then being able to query the data off the bat. And then there's also the things like, Raya touched on this a lot, the fact that, there's hotel networks and university networks. Not everything is going to be nation state or ISP level censorship. So having the domain knowledge in order to distinguish what is specifically a hotel block, for instance, or a university block versus others is also a challenge just in reading the data as well. I'll open it up if other people have anything else to add.
Thank you, Jacob. I think you summarized it really well. And just as a note, in the chat, we have shared a link to the OONI Measurement Aggregation Toolkit, through which you can all plot charts based on aggregate views of OONI data and easily discover what's blocked around the world. And we've also shared a link to a tutorial for analyzing OONI data. As we only have a few minutes left, I'm going to move on to the next question, which is for all panelists. And so I invite all panelists to join the stream if you'd like. And so the question is, how could we improve OONI tools to help you address the challenges to internet freedom, free expression in the coming decades? And any of our panelists are welcome to answer this question.
I'm not sure who asked the question, but I'm assuming someone who, my answer would be to join the OONI community, which is an extremely welcoming community. You can join via Slack, the mailing list, and just contributing in this way, I think, is a way to improve OONI tools, improve the discussion around internet freedom, how to measure network interference, and so on. So that would be my contribution to that question.
If I may add something, from my experience, like working with researchers in countries where we update the Citizen Lab test list, many people who are using this type of research belong to the human rights organizations on the ground or journalists, and they're not very tech savvy. And basically, whenever they deal with something that's tech related, especially like network measurement, they get a little bit scared. So I think one very helpful thing would be to produce like information type of like videos or like step-by-step instructions to show these people on the ground that it's actually that not difficult to use OONI tools in order to determine whether certain content is blocked in the country or not. and one step into that direction was that another tool that OONI recently developed, that is a platform that is user-friendly and enables people from individual countries to suggest changes to the Citizen Lab test list, to update them, or to remove content from them. So this was really great.
Thank you both, Raya and Igor. Thank you, Raya, for highlighting the participation in the community. And also, we've shared a link to the free online OONI training course in the chat, which we encourage you to try out, as it provides a lot of screencasts and tutorials for how to use our tools. Kelly?
Yes, I would also like to echo what Igor has mentioned, not just also training about using OONI tools, but I've received feedback as to understanding, like reading the measurements in the perspective of a researcher. It could take quite a bit of time for them to understand the technical terms and so on. So maybe training for the researchers is also something that can go more in depth. That's one. I also received feedbacks about how researchers like us, we can maybe have like an alert system. I believe Arturo has mentioned in his slides presentation yesterday about having an alert system for social media instant messaging. But I'm also looking at perhaps is it possible to do it for specific events like OONI run, something that you can monitor for urgency or emergency basis, something that could be like events like elections and so on, protests. So that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And speaking of monitoring events which may trigger censorship events, I think this ties nicely with the next question, which is how to coordinate with local communities or engage them in monitoring internet censorship during the elections or protests happening in the country. I know that many of you have experience with this, particularly Felicia, but also Kelly. Would anyone like to help answer this question from your experience?
I can begin first. So in my experience is that we have to first establish like a network first to teach them how to use OONI tools before these specific monitor events happen. So when they know how to use OONI tools and when certain events happen, we can get their assistance into this because they already have a background in using it. So it's like day by day. In usual days, you build up the capacity of our network, our community and users. And when the need arises, we can immediately engage them and also do it through social media, like the default social media calls and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you to you and to Sinar Project for all your incredible work in coordinating with communities across Southeast Asia to monitor and detect and respond to internet censorship events. And given that we're actually at the hour, I just want to say a huge thank you to the community members who joined us today to present. If you'd like to turn on your cameras and join. Oh, yay. Fantastic. Huge thank you, everyone, for joining us today and for sharing your work. Huge thanks for all the work that you do, both involving OONI tools and data, but also for the very important work that you do in general. For everyone watching, I definitely encourage you to check out the links we have shared in the chat to learn more about each of their work. And I also encourage you to support their work in any way that you can, as all of our speakers who have joined us today are really doing very important work for the internet. And for human rights around the world. And I also want to thank all other OONI community members who weren't here with us today in the live stream, but who are also doing incredible work. To each and every one of you out there, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And also a huge thanks to everybody who watched this live stream today and to everyone who has supported the Ooniverse in one way or the other over the past decade. Thank you, everyone. And if you have any further feedback or if you want to get involved either with OONI or any of the other projects shared today, please do get in touch. Thanks, everyone. Take care.